Welcome to Dateline Health. This is Fred Lippman coming to you from Nova Southeastern University. And you know, there's been a lot of discussion, and we read in our newspapers, and we watch on television, and we get our magazines and ARP journals, and they talk about the big steps in medical research to make your lives more whole, more complete, and healthy. So this show is dedicated to that. And let me introduce to you two very, very significant individuals that are involved with the research programs that are being developed here at Nova Southeastern University. Let me introduce Dr. H. Thomas Temple. He's a Senior Vice President for Translational Research and Economic Development, but also a preeminent orthopedic oncologist. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dr. Lippman.
Good
It's very nice to be here.
Well, it's good to have you. And somebody's been with us for quite a while. Dr. Paula Waziri. She's an assistant professor in the College of Osteopathic Medicine, and she is in the Institute of Neuroimmune Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Waziri.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Dr. Temple, we're in a transformational time here at Nova Southeastern University. In fact, we're at a transformational time in the history of this wonderful nation where research is now being done for the purposes of not only curing diseases, but preventing diseases. Just give us an overview of what we're doing here at Nova Southeastern.
Well, this is a very exciting time, as you said, to be in this part of the research enterprise. We are looking at a number of opportunities here at Nova Southeastern University, principally in cancer research. We are looking at everything from changing the cell biology so that we can actually take natural T killer cells and program them to home into tumors and destroy them in ways that we haven't been able to in the past. We are looking at defects in cancer susceptibility and trying to modify that environment. First of all, identifying people that are at risk and then modifying that environment for them. We're looking at translational changes in tumor cells and modifying those pathways in ways that allow us to attack specific tumor cells and not just sort of do a modality that attacks all cells. So that's one of the principal lines. The other area that we're quite interested in are stem cells and actually harvesting and expanding stem cells so that we can repair and regenerate every type of tissue from cartilage and bone to cardiac to even modifying cells in the retina to help mitigate some of the effects of macular degeneration. So we're continuing to embark on these lines of investigation, and we brought in a number of key investigators that are working synergistically to help bring some of these things to commercialization and clinical application.
That's great. Now let me introduce again Dr. Paula Waziri. As Dr. Temple said, you're affiliated with the Neuroimmune Institute, which is, I would say, captained, all right, by a wonderful researcher, and you're going to tell us who that researcher is.
Yes, that's Dr. Nancy Klimas.
Dr. Nancy Klimas.
Yes.
And she's world-renowned in the field of immunosuppressive disease issues. And tell us in sort of a thumbnail what you are doing.
Yes, basically we have three lines of research. The first two lines of research are very much associated with Dr. Klimas' work, which is in chronic fatigue syndrome and Gulf War illness. But my third line of research that I've been working for quite some time here at NSU is related to the work of oncolytic viruses on cancer cells. So basically I work with viruses that are harmless to humans, but they are able to find cancer cells, infect them, and kill them at a faster pace than they would a normal cell.
That's very, see now, so you see the synergy between the the Cell Institute, which Dr. Temple is going to talk about very shortly, because we have some very unique and very interesting world-class individuals that have just joined us. But they are focused on something which you've been focusing on for quite a while. So we have this immediate synergy, correct?
Right.
Again, repeat, what you're doing is you're taking viruses which are found in the normal environment in our bodies,
Yes.
but are killers to
Yes.
cancer cells.
Yes, they would infect cells that are weak in the immune system, and most of the cancer cells, especially the ones that are more aggressive, have defects on these antiviral pathways. So the virus will take advantage of that, infect the cells, and kill the cells. And the interesting thing about these viruses is that they're very easy to manipulate. That means we can put a tag or a green tag on the virus, and we can know which cell is infected. So mainly we can trace where the virus is infected, and we can find the cancer cells, and then we could combine with some other forms of therapies and fluorescent lights during surgery to find the cancer cell that is infected and remove it in case the virus did not get to kill it first.
Dr. Temple, it's exciting to know that we're so proud of having you now as our Senior Vice President. In discussions with President Hinbury and the leadership here, clearly stated that we can't be everything to everyone on research, so we're going to focus in on certain areas. And one of those areas relates to the area that we were just talking about, and also in the area that we are now about to expand our tremendous research capacity in. So let's talk about that.
It's a wonderful opportunity, in fact, and it really dovetails into the whole notion of personalized medicine. And instead of taking these cytotoxic drugs that affect the entire body and weaken the immune system and make people sick, and in fact have a certain mortality, now we can actually identify specific pathways in cancer and attack those specific pathways in a very systematic way. And I envision having a portfolio of these types of agents, whether it's an oncolytic virus, whether it's a modified immune cell, or altering the cell in some way that affects a critical pathway in a cancer cell, that will allow us to effectively, maybe not cure, but change the whole natural history of cancer disease as we know it. So that's one of the key areas that we focused on, and cancer research is going to explode here for a couple of reasons. One is we have this wonderful collaborative center for research that is a state-of-the-art building, and is, as we speak, being modified to basically handle all the research that needs to be done to get to that point where we can actually produce these materials and get them into clinical trials. The second key component is, and part of President Hanbury's vision is, that we're going to be able to take things from the bench to the bedside in quick order. And we're going to do that with people that actually know how to run hospital systems. And that's going to be transformational, I believe, in what we're able to do here. We're not simply going to be doing research for the sake of research. We're going to be able to do research to benefit mankind. And I think that's really an important first step. So being able to take these ideas and bring people together in a collaborative way, and then taking these ideas and putting them into a system that can allow us to get answers in quick order, I think is going to be a unique way of doing cancer business in the future.
And Dr. Temple, again, just to let the folks know, don't forget, a lot of the folks who are interested, and particularly it's interesting that the two most mentioned items of interest, although our viewers are interested in healthcare in general, but the two that come up all the time are surgical procedures and cancer.
Yes.
And in surgical procedures, they're always asking about minimally invasive surgical techniques. And in cancer, they always talk about the horrors of cancer, the death, the pain, et cetera, et cetera. And when you mention cytotoxic drugs or pharmaceuticals, what you're talking about are drugs that, were, in a sense, miraculous over the last decade, that were developed to kill, but they were killing a great deal more than just the cells, as people would say. Instead of putting on a big room of lights, you are now using a laser beam just to get to that cell rather than putting on the whole light to cure the entire individual. Is that sort of a good analogy?
It's a great analogy, and the same is true in surgical techniques. I mean, we developed a number of implants that are very specific to specific problems. For example, we have an implant now that is silver-coated, and before we would have to remove a large portion of someone's skeleton in a joint. And occasionally these patients would get infected, and we really didn't have many options at that point in time. And now we have an implant that's actually smarter than some of the people that put them in. And these implants can actually release silver ions in the face of a periprosthetic infection. And these kinds of things are revolutionary. Now we can actually stabilize a long bone through a 2 or 3 centimeter incision, whereas before that would have been unheard of. And we do this indirectly. We can use Da Vinci systems to robotically remove tumors that would have required very, very large incisions and big exposures and lots of risk to the individual. And now these have become commonplace. So these kinds of advances over time, I think, have been really transformative in the way we approach patient problems specifically related to cancer.
Well, again, and as I always tell our viewers, you know, we don't want to in any way denigrate the great work of the predecessors to these times. It's just that technology, a lot of things come from space, research, and the ability of the application of computer technology to the availability of the researcher.
I'm so glad you mentioned space as well, because we have recently developed a collaboration with the Aerospace Corporation in Los Angeles, California. And one of the initiatives is to harness some of their computational skills to look at cybersecurity. Another area that we're looking at is using satellite data to help guide us in the operating theater to make very specific cuts in bone or soft tissue planes based on information that's fed into satellites and then beamed back to special instruments that we're using in the operating theater. Or actually to use some of their nanoparticle work to identify circulating tumor cells and identify cancer as very earliest stages when actually some of these therapies are most efficacious. It's important because it not only improves our ability, but enhances patient outcomes.
Right.
And that's really the bottom line.
And folks, as you always say to me when you talk to me about your questions about surgery, the big problem is you're always talking about pain, blood, and I guess you can say rehabilitation and being down for such a period of time. We're talking about making life better, as Dr. Temple said, for you and mankind and womankind. How about that?
Yes,
See, you thought I forgot, right?
Not
Dr.
at all.
Waziri, let me ask you, let's get back to you again. I know the work that you've been doing for so many years in relative to cancer therapy and cancer research. But isn't it wonderful to know that now you have colleagues that have this great width of intellectual, not only curiosity, but knowledge?
Yes, to me it's a dream come true. Because especially looking at a different aspect on the research, especially here at Nova, we have this vision that not only we want to treat the disease, but we want to not cure disease, but we want to treat the patient as a whole. And it's very important to emphasize the natural fighting properties, like with the natural killer cells, with the immune system of the patient, to enhance the normal cellular function and to enhance the ability of the patient to heal himself or herself in conjunction with therapeutic methods to attack cancer cells. So we're looking, or by the matter of fact, to fight chronic fatigue syndrome or Gulf War illnesses. They are very, very debilitating diseases. So we're looking at what alternative or what is available to what is available in the market, not only in the pharmaceutical availability, but also in the nutraceutical availability, meaning supplements that can enhance natural function and the ability of the body to fight the disease. And then in conjunction with therapeutic processes, it can be conventional drugs that would kill cancer cells, or oncolytic viruses that will find the cancer cells and through specific pathways kill the cancer cells. But it's a whole integration of the therapeutic approaches that we're looking at.
Exciting, isn't it?
Oh, very, very exciting.
Exciting.
Yes.
Dr. Temple, I know that when you came to us and joined our team, it was very specific, and you were part of the conversations that we can't be everything, as I said before, we can't be everything to everyone.
Yes.
So we're focusing in on what areas. I know we created institutes. You want to talk about that?
Yes, we're going to focus on the neuroimmunology,
Right.
which I think is very present in our society today with all the returning veterans and the neurocompromise that has evolved from their participation in these military campaigns. We're going to be looking at cell therapies. As Dr. Azeri said, we're going to focus on the body's ability to reprogram itself to basically regenerate and repair. And we're going to do this across many different disciplines, musculoskeletal medicine. We're going to look at it in the neural space with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And we're going to look at it in the ophthalmic space with macular degeneration. Then we have another institute that specifically is going to look at behavioral issues. And as you know, we have one of the largest autism groups in the United States. And they have done some phenomenal work on modifying behaviors and feeding disorders and whatnot in this patient population. And as well as looking at the problems of addiction, which is very invasive in South Florida, United States in general. And then finally, one thing that's very exciting is looking at the computational biology, looking at big data and looking at terabytes of information where we actually try to understand every aspect of a particular disease and then break it down into component parts and then identify those particular areas that are worth intense investigation. And I think those 4 institutes are going to be key to our success, and that's where we're placing all of our effort at this point in time.
You know, as I'm listening to you, I thought about this one day when we were talking with the president and some of the folks that you deal with. And I guess, my first profession was pharmacy. That was many, many years ago when I was at Columbia University. And I was always fascinated by biochemistry. And I said to him, and just listening to you now, for some reason, it just hit my mind and said, what we're really doing is we have this long-standing knowledge of the ability of the human species and the biochemical reactions and the biochemistry of this body called the human body. And yet what we're doing is we don't want to interfere necessarily with the magnificent elements of discovery over the years relative to drug products or whatever. But now we're actually using knowledge, biochemistry knowledge of the body and letting the body work with you, not only to help you, but in a sense we're teaching both each other's knowledge. Because when you talk about terabytes, this is multiple, folks, this is like huge. It's like 1,000 computers that you would have in your house in 1 terabyte of information, and the computation takes out the knowledge that's necessary to tell you what the biochemical response is.
That's correct. And it's a wonderful synergy here. We really have people that have the knowledge of not only cellular biology, but also the engineering understanding of the different matrices that need to carry these cells to do their function. And then the understanding that these stem cells that we manufacture in a lab are also important in basically recruiting and magnifying and augmenting our own stem cells to actually participate in that repair. And not only do we have the synergies in the research space, but we have the synergies in the clinical space, so that we can actually take these ideas very quickly and we can basically park them in the clinical space and answer questions in a rapid fashion. And I think the better we get at this, the more advanced we're going to become as a university in moving the ball forward to answer some of these key questions in the cancer space, the neural space, and other areas where we have been stuck for a period of time. As Ecclesiastes said, there's nothing new under the sun. It's basically taking things that we always knew and harnessing them in a way that's meaningful and useful.
Dr. Waziri, I know that the issues that you've been involved in for a long period of time, but also you bridge our wonderful Oceanographic Institute with our new Biological and Cell Therapy Institute and the Institute for Neuroimmune Medicine.
I'm adjunct there. I teach genetics for undergrads.
Right.
But it's very interesting seeing that the students are engaging in the knowledge, and they're engaging this new knowledge coming out, especially with epigenetics knowledge. And nowadays, more and more of epigenetic approach to prevention of disease is being emphasized. And actually, I give extra credit to my students, saying that if they do 5 miles of aerobic running or walking, they can get 20 points on the quiz, and everybody's starting to exercise a little more. And then I tell them, well, bring me a paper that shows what are the benefits of exercise to your thinking process, to your cognition. How is that going to help you in the test, not only to get extra points, but on an epigenetics approach? How is that going to help you as a person? And then we do have a lot of interest from the students saying, oh, I never thought about that. I can change the ways that my genes are working. I can change the ways that my brain is thinking. So this is a huge amount of knowledge that is so exciting at this point.
And what Dr. Temple is saying is, with computational knowledge, these megaterabytes of information, the things that again, not to say, but your example right there of telling these young people that in research, wellness has a lot to do with, for example, exercise, hydration, your nutrition, etc. And that comes back to you.
Yes.
That's what you said in the very beginning of the show.
Yes, and I think that you pointed out a wonderful synergy that our viewers may not be aware of, that the Oceanographic Institute and the Center for Collaborative Research are really tightly connected. Many of the discoveries that come from the ocean can be used for drug discovery. We have an individual now that's interested in joining the NSU faculty who is taking in algae and creating a fuel to basically eliminate the fossil fuel issues. We have many examples of different types of algae and sea creatures that are used for cancer therapies, for example. We are working with an institute in St. Petersburg with 8 computational biologists who've actually created this interesting app called the Gene Highway, where they actually look at a specific disease and a specific chromosome of a disease and then map all the genes. And as you look at the app, you go down the highway and you could see these genes expressed in variable ways, and then they take specific genes and they say, how can we alter this gene to change basically the phenotype of that particular disease? So wonderful things coming out of the Oceanographic Institute that dovetail very nicely with what we're trying to do on the clinical health research side.
Well, we're down to the last 45 seconds of this show, and I know we have a lot more to talk about, but I want to thank both of you. First of all, Dr. Waziri, thank you for your long-standing advocacy and your involvement in our institution here. But we have to say thank you to now Dr. H. Thomas Temple, who to me is just an incredible breath of fresh air to bring to this venue. He doesn't like to say that he should be honored, but I honor him for not only his knowledge, but his ability and willingness to create wellness for the viewers. And that's important. It's just not, writing prescriptions and getting into the OR. He's trying to discover new opportunities for these people to have a long and healthy life. And we thank you, Dr. Temple.
Thank you, Dr. Lippman. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be here.
Thank you both very much, Dr. Waziri,
Thank
Dr.
you so
Temple.
much.
Thank you very much for being here. Folks, when Dr. Temple spoke about the Collaborative Research Building, it's being completed right now here on the campus of Nova Southeastern University. It's a $100 million plus building, which is being focused on one thing, and that's your health and the way we live in our society, communicating not only with our own bodies but with each other. So I hope that you have an opportunity at some point in time in the next year or 6 months or whatever to come by, just take a look at the building, and I'm sure at some point in time we'll have some information available for you. But know that Nova Southeastern University is on the cusp of doing some great things, not only for this country, but for the whole world and the human species. So thank you very much for showing up again this week. We appreciate the opportunity of coming into your homes. If you have any questions, you have any comments, there's an email address and telephone number right here. Remember, I always tell you the same thing, but Dr. Temple told you as well. You got to take good care of yourself, and you got to communicate. So make sure you tell your doctors, don't let things go by. Get in touch with them, talk to them. And remember, this show is called Dateline Health. We come to you from Nova Southeastern University. My name is Fred Lippman. Until next time, see you.